That's fine. I'll just mute
Yes,
the.
yes. Do you print out the agenda?
Yeah, I like.
Oh, I like this paper.
I do too, but I use it for special things and I was making something with it yesterday.
Welcome, everyone. I'd like to start the May 9th, 2023 Moab Area Travel Council Advisory Board meeting to order. And first up, we are gonna do introductions. I'm gonna go last today because I'm gonna talk a little bit about airport stuff. So Lori, would you like to start us off?
Lori McFarland, High Point Hummer and ATV, TRCCA contributor. That's it.
Chris Bear, Strategic Development Director and Budget Officer for Grand County.
Brian Hennings, General Manager of Cliffs Lodge and TRCT board member.
Mary McGann, Grand County Commission, I am the liaison for the commission.
My name is August Grant. I'm the Economic Development Director, and we have two folks from our staff here. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Lisa Stott, Assistant Marketing Director for Grand County Economic Development. You Metzner, Moab to Monument Valley Zone Commissioner.
Rebecca, do you want to start online?
Rebecca Monso. I'm sales manager of Hampton and Homewood Suites in Moab.
All right, and then, so that was introduction. Sorry for skipping ahead. If there's any conflicts of interest, disclosures, or ex parte communication, please anyone state that right now? There's none to be heard, and then any citizens to be heard? Believe so, not online or speaks here. And then next, we're gonna go into the approval of the April 11th, 2023 meeting minutes. Do I have an approval? A motion?
One amendment, sorry, I'm missing from the attendance on that.
Okay. Let's make a note of that.
But other than that, I will make a motion to approve it.
Cool.
Thank you, Brian. Second is Lori.
Okay.
Trying to repeat the names like.
Yep. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And then reminder, we're doing roll call votes for.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
All right, all in favor?
We have to do roll call.
Roll.
So you ask each person how they vote.
Ah,
Yeah, it's just easier for the minutes.
okay, let's do it that way. Roll, I'm never gonna roll.
So you just say, I vote aye, you say their
Okay.
name, and they'll say A or
I
nay.
vote aye, Jenny Gleason.
Okay, cool.
Aye. Lori for the minute.
So if you just say, I think the easiest way is you just state their name, and then they'll say how they vote. And then that's super easy for the public and for the minutes to just capture. That was feedback from Ben doing the minutes.
Got it. Lori?
Aye.
Brian,
Aye.
great. And then
Rebecca.
Rebecca?
Hi.
Awesome.
Uniform.
Yeah, we have 4 voting members. Lacey
Great.
said she's coming. Sharon can't make it. Alex can't make it.
Right, all in favor, that's everyone in favor, no opposed. And next up is board member reports, and this is where I'm gonna go last.
I have nothing to report.
How did your April go?
It was soft.
April was actually good for us. I mean, we were below occupancy, but higher ADR. And we just had challenges with. The thing for us is just the rising river and water levels down there. And it's causing a bunch of issues for us. Not just at the lodge, but I mean, business has been good.
Is it getting up on the property? That's usual.
Not yet, but it was a little sketchy. And we've seen everything but like cows and horses and people washing down the river. It's been pretty scary.
Cows and
What?
horses washing down the river.
It's been-
You have
Yeah,
seen
high
cows.
water, a lot of cows. So
I told people to expect driftwood, not cows.
No, there's whole trees going down too, so we had a tree actually hit our dock and break it in half.
The dock or the tree?
The dock. Tree was fine,
Tree
but
did great, huh?
yeah, it survived, well, maybe not, it was in the river, but no, it's been a busy April, May's looking good too, so we're looking forward to just. Summer's still a little bit soft, but other than that, it's good.
Okay. Rebecca?
I would have to agree what he just said. We are kind of starting to see a little bit better pickup than, the soft spring that we were experiencing. Rates are still kind of stretched through the market. But I mean, season kind of seems softer than the last year. But hopefully, I'm anticipating May and June to be a lot better than April for sure.
Got it. Thank you.
You wanna go with me?
Yeah, red tail, I'd say down from last year, in April, flat from 2019. And I just want to talk a little bit about, a tiny bit about red tail, but mostly the airport board for Contour Air, what's going on with that, with the EAS update. So been talked to by a lot of people. SkyWest is pulling out. They are pulling out of over 30 markets nationwide because of the pilot shortage. And so the county opened up an RFP request and 2 people submitted a bid. It was Boutique Air and Contour Airlines, and Boutique Air offered a proposal of 3 flights a day at 9 seats. If they only had 1 pilot, or 8 if they had 2 pilots, and so 3 times a day to Denver. And the other offer was Contour Airlines, and they offered a 30-passenger jet doing service to and from Phoenix. So the airport board recommended Contour Airlines to the commission. And so that's what we're going ahead with. Contour is saying they could do October 1st, hopefully. And I did tell the airport board and recommend them, like, ask Contour if they could do anything about Salt Lake or Denver, because those are our top markets. Phoenix is December 8th. And they're gonna try. It's just really hard to get gate space. That's like the whole thing. So Contour has a gate space in Phoenix. They would have to do lots of things to get gate space at Salt Lake or Denver, but they're not saying no, they're gonna try, but they can start October 1st in Phoenix. And so that is the latest about what is going on at the airport.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Would we be able to retain TSA if we have contract?
Yes, so that's nothing's changing with that, TSA, and the employees don't even know what's going on. The SkyWest employees don't even know what's going on. They haven't been told anything. No news is good news. There's even flights in October and November of Delta and United, available right now. They're not
They're reservable.
yeah, they're reservable. They're not crazy. They're like $400, round trip. So they're still offering it. So that is what's going on. Red Tail is looking at other options to assist, but that's literally just being talked about today. So nothing to report on with that, but yeah, it's a nationwide thing. And then we're gonna go into the next part. If anyone else has any questions, to kind of what we're able to do.
When I talked to Tammy, she said SkyWest is booked, or they have to be there until the end of June, correct? And then they're hoping that they can get permission to stay until Concord stays over. She says that's still not clear, but that's what they're working on.
Yeah, we're all really hoping they fulfill their contract. I mean, I guess, I don't know how many times SkyWest can say, oh, we don't have pilots, get to cancel. But they Contour, they're supposed to stay in service until someone else takes over the contract. That is what SkyWest contract said. So Contour said they could take over October 1st, but nothing before or anything different right now. So options, opportunities. And
Anything else?
nope, that's it. You wanna
Yeah,
update?
I just wanted to touch on a couple things that I was asked to touch on. So one of the things that we talked about at last meeting was the request for proposal process for strategic planning for all things economic development. So that is live and we are receiving, it closes on Friday. So we'll be seeing those proposals early next week for the first time, and the scoring committee on that will be Jenny from this board, someone from the Economic Development Board. I believe Melissa is filling in for that role. Chris, myself, and Bill Winfield is representing the commission. So we'll be evaluating those proposals and then bringing those to the county commission for review. Any questions on that and whether that's in the process and anything related to that? Additionally, one of the things that have been coming up is that there is the Writers Guild of America went on strike at the beginning of this month. We got a lot of questions about how that would affect our area. A statement that the Utah Film Commission provided, and then Vika can fill in if there's any other follow-ups on this, is that at this time, quote, "At this time, we don't know of any Utah productions that are affected by the writer's strike. The strike will mostly affect television and development, as well as talk shows, which are not currently filmed in Utah." Anything that you want to add to that?
Commercials don't fall under the same rules. The bread and butter here is commercials. So those are continuing, and the projects that tend to come here have already been written. So it's gonna be what it normally would be, which is, standing by to hear what, things that might not come because of the writer's guild. But it could be a long strike. It doesn't, they want, it's all about AI at this point, right? Which is, and streaming services, but Utah, like Utah Film Commission said, we're still on board to do the things that we're supporting commercials here, so.
Yep. Awesome, thank you, Vika.
Yeah.
Any other questions on that piece? I just know we got some concerns that could have some immediate economic impacts, and it doesn't look likely to do that. Separately, we released a community survey to get some feedback on the balance of the economic diversification dollars that are eligible to be spent before July 1st. Chris and I have been trying to figure out exactly how much that will be and put together some concrete, shovel-ready, contractually able to be contracted projects before the end of June, and wanted to make sure that there was transparency and input on that process. And we sent that out to our email list to get community input. And just wanted to make sure that was clear if there's any questions from this board on that process, or what's on that list. That's kind of my update. We have a lot to discuss here today. So happy to dive right in.
Perfect. Next up is the House Bill 416 budget review.
Cool. All right, so I'm just going to start. There's two main things that we're going to be diving into as a board today, and that is considering using some changing funds to increase, recommend an increase in the budget for a summer marketing campaign that the commission has approved at this point at $100,000. So that's a piece of context, and we're going to kind of consider some different options. Mark is going to speak to that from Love Communications. Additionally, Adam on the data team has done his kind of audit on all of the various data sources, dashboards, reporting stuff that this board kind of wanted us to look into. And so we have some options, a good, better, best kind of option there that this board can take a look at and make a recommendation on. And then I put together all of the kind of initial changes that we had discussed in, I believe, our March meeting that Melissa had recommended, as well as some smaller, hey Lacey, smaller changes that just need to be in there from a budgetary standpoint, based off of contractual obligations. But basically, this is an estimate. So Chris had me look at the July to December TRT revenues from last year, which amounted to a little under $4 million here. So calculating that based off of
That's, but just to clarify, that's the 37% of the total.
well, yeah, so that's 37% of the total. Oops. Yeah, so this is
So never mind, go ahead.
yeah. So this first line here is total TRT revenues from July to December 2022, a little under $4 million, right? And so 37% of that is eligible to be used on establish and promote uses, which gets us to a little under $1.5 million. 1/3 of that is a little under $500,000 that's eligible to be, that was previously budgeted for diversification uses. But due to changing state law here halfway through the year, that amount of money is eligible to be rebudgeted basically back to the establish and promote tourism activity category. Is that an accurate interpretation, Chris?
Yeah, and so the thing to know is that the assumption here is that we'll match last year, the second half of last year will be matched this year.
Right.
We're not on track, as you're all aware, for matching last year because of the long winter. And so it's still yet to be seen. Hopefully, we'll at least, get 2022's numbers for the second half of the year.
Right.
Barring any other major catastrophe of some kind, but,
Is this based on equal to 2022 or the?
equal.
This is exactly 2022.
So those are exactly what we brought in last year through that period. And so, if we have 0% growth, that's what we can expect. We did see, traffic counts were pretty low. All the numbers were really low until the last week of April. Then they shot way up. The last week of April actually saw, record setting traffic counts. Which is, probably kind of normal, that most people tell me that there is kind of a big surge after ski resorts all shut down.
Can you tell me those traffic counts, or is that coming into Moab and not leaving? Like, how do we know what's passed through? Or do we not know?
We don't know.
Okay.
So we might assume that the pass-through is kind of stasis, and that the ebb and flow is related to tourism, but we don't know. I mean, it's just a counter.
Well, it's better than waiting for the tax revenue to be 2 months delayed in reporting, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I just found out recently also that there was some pretty sizable missed payments last year. And then this year, there's a bunch of big refunds correcting the missed payment from last year, which, makes it hard to correlate TRT collections with actual economic activity. That kind of thing happens.
This payment's like over or under?
Last year, they overpaid and now they're getting a refund.
Yeah, someone did.
Those the hotels?
Hotels, yeah. I can't really say too much more than that.
Yeah.
Proprietary, but there were some overpayments last year that are now being refunded in this year's numbers. So that's gonna make it, the numbers are low and they will be low, as everyone's aware, through the spring and late winter. But there's also the issue of the big refunds being credited.
So you're the math guy. Will that, how do you deal with that in a budgetary process with the government?
We may have to do a budget amendment. It's possible.
I mean,
We only have TRT collection through February right now. And so, as we progress, if we still, whatever we're down on revenue, we're gonna do a mid-year budget amendment. We'll probably be approving sometime in June. And if we continue to see significant decreases in revenue, then we'll because the match will be balanced.
because obviously if you're appropriating money that actually wasn't real.
So yeah, last year we brought the money in, and so as I understand it, the way that, it's working now is that our payment that we get from the tax commission is, that much less, whatever the refund is. And so we
It
have
goes
to,
against last year's budget.
no, it'll have to be in this year's
Oh,
budget,
that's what.
because last year's budget closed.
Okay.
That year, we just closed 2022, our auditors were here, and we just closed 2022, so we can't make any kind of adjustments like that. We'll just have to deal with it in the current year, which means that, we'll have to deal with just a slow spring and, these refunds. Haven't really figured the full scope of that.
That really ballpark, right?
They said it was a lot, and the tax commission said it was a lot. I don't want to say exactly right now, because I haven't really quantified it, but that's something we'll have to deal with. And so, but it will come out in the wash one way or the other, if we still have a fund, some fund balance. We spent down a lot of the fund balance that we had. Because we increased the ad spend significantly last year, added another 500,000 last year. We are contemplating also adding more, which we're gonna get to here in this meeting pretty soon, for the summer campaign, and probably hit some fly market stuff. But yeah, we may end up having to reduce budgets that are associated with TRT in our June amendment. To rebalance everything out.
You say June?
June is when we'll probably do the budget. There's a whole bunch of grants and whatnot that we've got, that we need to do a budget amendment for to bring in the revenue and the expense side of all these new grants we got. At the same time, we can address any revenue shortfalls that we see in TRT. You know, and but we have a fund balance, and so we can say, well, instead of cutting the advertising budget, we'll just make up for it by pulling more money out of fund balance and spending it. That's an option too, but that still requires a budget.
And we only have this, so this is previously budgeted for diversification. Is this, maybe you're getting this, is there a plan
Yeah.
for it?
That's what I was gonna.
Okay.
throw out.
Yeah, so that's what we're moving into. That's what I was speaking to. This half of the year, I mean, I don't know of any reason why we would be significantly down relative to 2022. So I think it's a safer bet, you know, that we're gonna match 2022 in the second half of the year. So the diversification spend, which is, you know, it's gonna end at the end of the state fiscal year, which is June 30th. And so moving forward from then is when we have to start calculating the budget that we're gonna bring into tourism promotion.
Yeah, so functionally, from a budgetary standpoint, you know, this is an amount of money that basically sits on top of the tourism promotion bucket of expenditures. That I'm gonna go through kind of an initial recommendation of how we'd spend that, how we budget that, I suppose. Yeah, so all these exchanges represent there. I try to get it about on the money. It's $4 less than that total amount, so it's approximately there. So most of these are pretty straightforward and kind of tied to changes that were discussed in March from kind of Melissa's input and other staff input. In the travel budget, adding some funds to add a travel council board member to be able to attend the Utah Tourism Conference, as well as an additional staff person to attend the Outdoor Recreation Summit. We had some small changes. We just got a new email management system that had a small increase in cost. And then our Wander Maps contract was $2,000 more than we had budgeted for. We neutralized that by taking that out of somewhere else in the budget. And then there's also some website hosting and domain costs that came up during the year that we hadn't budgeted for that need to go in this category. Under memberships, we had zeroed out contributions to the Global Sustainable Tourism Council, National Tour Association, which does kind of bus coach tours and Leave No Trace. So we brought those back in. In the earned media category, so this is familiarization towards media, stuff like that. Again, this is an increase in dollars. That's kind of per Melissa's request, what the state kind of recommend that we spend on this category. In owned media, some additional expenses from video projects that we're shooting this year, as well as some liabilities that we had that were not budgeted for. Travel trade shows, just increasing costs based off of what it's costing to book hotels and flights. For the MIC contribution, I just updated this to represent the actual total value of the contract the MIC signed with Grand County at the end of last year. We slightly under budgeted that. For international sales missions, same thing for Melissa, trying to have more money for hotels and flights and whatnot. This just ended up in this way, small increase to the visitor education bucket for some posters that were put up at the MIC and the airport that have multiple translations of the timed entry reservation system. This is not currently in the budget, but was approved by the county as a contribution to the Grand County Fair. 50,000 is the right amount, right, Chris, for that?
It's close to that. I can't remember exactly.
Okay, I'm pretty sure it's 50.
But we did create an account for it. It's theirs.
Okay, I might
So
have.
that's
missed it.
the only one that's actually been approved by the commission. All these others are proposed.
Yeah. Yep. And then the last one is, there was a fair amount of general office costs that were accounted for, just split up between kind of the various accounts of the office on the economic diversification and the tourism promotion side. So those are ongoing costs like vehicle lease, things like that, that have to come back into this budget category. And so I want to make sure that we're accounting for those and not spending money we don't have. So those are kind of like the bread and butter stuff. Some small decreases to try to make this balance. The Moab grant, which was kind of created last year to support kind of local tourism businesses with some marketing dollars. It received much less attention than some of the other grant programs we put out last year, and we don't have a ton of staff to revitalize that this year. So to try to balance the proposals, I propose to cut that. In addition to taking $5,000 off of the branding expenses and some website costs down to from 10,000 to 0 that we're not anticipating to need this year. And then the larger increases that we're considering today is a change to the summer campaign expenditures. So in terms of what's budgeted is 100 grand, and so Mark and Love is going to present, an additional 100 grand as well as an additional 200 grand, so that we can provide to the commission kind of a menu of options. One thing that has come up from a grant perspective is that we did not spend one of the UOT cooperative marketing grants a couple of years ago. Due to COVID, we received it and didn't end up spending it. This is kind of one of the vestige of the previous administration that we were kind of finding out. And so rather than have us, refund that amount of money, the staff at these office stores recommended that just be balanced out of the grant award that we received. However, that is for funding, that is for the campaign we already ran this spring. So we already have that liability owed to Love Communications. And so to balance that out, just adding that amount to the fly market campaign that we already ran this year, so that again, we're not spending money we don't have. And then we also put in an additional 40,000 towards international marketing efforts. That was kind of in Melissa's initial request package. And then Adam is going to be speaking to the various kind of data packages and reporting packages here that we can consider. Right now, what's budgeted is 30 grand, and that's for 3 data sources: short-term rental lodging, traditional lodging, and credit card spend. And so this is like quite a comprehensive package. The top end, the better package, is 111,000 approximately total. And there's some range between the good, better, and best there. So I'll let Adam speak to those 2 things, and then Mark speak to those 2 things. Is there anything else in here? Any questions before we kind of turn it over to Mark and Adam?
So will we come back to some of these bullet items later?
Yeah, so I mean, we'll have to go through the formal budget amendment at the county commission. And so what I would recommend is that we'll bring back a more finalized version of this, since we have the more accurate dollar numbers, and bring a kind of proposed amendment to the travel council board at their next meeting. And then the county commission would take that recommendation into account when they make their amendment at the 2nd June meeting.
So as far as discussing the fly market campaign, should we
That's what we're going to discuss today.
wait for that until after?
No, because I think we want to move on that quite quickly. And that's something that we can
So
recommend.
we want to spend more money and we're not sure we're gonna have service.
That was also my concern as well.
Yeah, so fair point. I think that the question is really much more, and the difference between like fly and drive is really just distance. So even if you're not actually flying, advertising to the LA market, you're still going to stay longer and spend more. And if you're flying through Phoenix versus Salt Lake, if you're in the LA market, it's probably no difference to you. And although that is something that we've asked Mark and the Love team to consider and address, is the changing to the fly market, or at least in flights available. So he, I think, would be able to answer that question better than I. Anything else that we want to discuss before giving the floor over to Mark?
Just that a lot of those conventions I attend, and I'm happy to participate.
Awesome. Great. Okay, I'll turn it over to you, Mark. I think I have to stop sharing and then allow you to share.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, you guys.
Okay, you should be good, Mark.
We're good now. Okay. Hope everyone's doing well today. Sure that everyone can see my screen. And hopefully it's large enough on the screen where you're at.
Yeah, it looks good.
Perfect. Okay. Well, let's go through it. So as August mentioned, we have approval on the initial $100,000 for the summer campaign, which is has started here. So let me go through this and talk about the strategy. So we've got two partners here that we're using. One is called Sojourn, and it's a programmatic partner that we've used time and time again, great in the tourism space. And the idea behind here is developing display ads that will be served up throughout people's search and web experience at the right time, at the right place, based on what they're doing online. And then also one's called Storage Eyes, and this is native content, native articles that we've developed. There's 4 of them specifically that are live now. And I'll kind of show you a quick highlight of these now. But the goal now on the display ads is we're in the process of finalizing those, and they'll be in market here in the next week or so. The native articles are live now and in the market. And the overall goal of this, of course, is to stimulate summer visitation during this slower time, that sort of that, July, August time period. But overall, we're in the market now to really extend and bring people to Moab over the summertime. And the markets that we're pushing right now is like Northern Utah, Denver, Colorado Springs, Vegas, Boise, Idaho Falls, and Phoenix. And as I mentioned, we've got 4 native articles and really great topics. So one is called Summer Stargazing in Moab's Dark Parks. In the top left is just a thumbnail image here of that. The next one is Spend Your Summer on the Water. Bottom left here, on the top right is the 3-day Moab itinerary. And then the bottom one here is an epic destination in any season. So we really have a diverse type of content here. Just talking about dark skies. We've got great water levels this year, so we're promoting that, and especially during the hot summer months, really pushing people to come on down and enjoy that cooler water. And then, of course, when you're coming, here's a idea of building a 3-day itinerary in Moab. Okay, and then of course an epic destination any season. So this is not only promoting the summer, but letting people know what's going on year-round at Moab. Okay, and here is a sample of the display ads. Again, we've received feedback on these. So these are the original ones that we're still adjusting. On the landing page for these is the 3-day Moab itinerary, as I mentioned. But we're promoting 3 different banner sets. One is the general audience, general message rather, nature's masterpiece, wild wonders, dark skies, and then the water-based. The image that we're going to be using for the water-based, I know right now it shows like a stand-up paddleboard and then the raft. We're actually going to be using another image that was provided showcasing Cataract Canyon, and really just a great image that way. So we've been kind of messing around with the different imagery as well. We're going to be changing like the CTA as well. Like instead of book your trip, it'll be plan your trip specifically now to that 3-day Moab itinerary. And then from a meeting that we had this last week, it was brought up by several people that what about the sustainability message? And so to answer that call, what we're going to be doing is developing, using this set of ads here, a message specific to preserving nature's masterpiece. And so we're going to be putting that in rotation with the overall campaign as well, so that we'll always have that sustainable message on there as well. So it's a good mix of creative. Okay. And then as we look forward to see as a possible additional dollars coming to the summer campaign, here's a sample buy of what it might look like for 200,000. So going from 100,000 that's in market now to the 200,000. And what we would do here is we would still keep with our same great programmatic partners for the display ads and for the native articles. But we would extend the flights while also adding fly markets such as Chicago, San Francisco, New York City, Houston, Seattle, and LA. And so we're able to not only do the drive markets, but also add the fly markets with this additional spend. Okay, and these key markets, our data is showing like travelers from those markets flying to Moab in the summer. So these markets were chosen based on data on what travelers are doing from those areas. Okay, so I'll just keep going here, and we can come back with questions. And then if we were to look at an overall campaign spend of 300,000, let's say, we continue with the fly markets such as Chicago, San Francisco, New York, Houston, Seattle, LA. We would continue with our display partners, programmatic partners, and native partner, and we'd stretch this to cover over September, so we'd have a stronger footing in those target markets. But we also would layer on connected TV tactic, leveraging a dark skies video. So we would with the great content and video footage that you have, we would create another video that would hit specifically in 2 regional markets, Denver and LA. Okay, so these 2 closer distant fly markets, we were previously targeting our fly market campaign, and we continue to penetrate those markets with that. So that's what it would look like right now between the 100, which is in market, the 200, which would continue to sustain and add to the display and native campaign. And then for 300, continue to sustain those 2 channels while adding connected TV as well.
Awesome. So if there's any questions for Mark on these options, basically the way I've tried to set up the budget changes is that we could absorb the maximum $300,000 spend. And so, and the same would be with like the better option for the data that Adam will present. And so these are both possible, assuming to Chris's point that those June through July numbers don't change.
So just for my own clarification, that amount that you said hadn't been spent before, that if I'm understanding right, we have to spend on fly market or lose it?
The 76,000.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Would
that
be included in,
we basically already spent that.
we've spent that.
We spent that. We've either already paid it to Love
Yeah.
or otherwise.
Okay.
Originally, when we had budgeted last year, we said, okay, we have $225,000 of grants coming from the state. And so that was the 50-50 match. We agreed on the total amount, contract with Love. They spent that money, they ran that campaign. We were then told by the Utah Tourism that 2 times ago's campaign was not actually ever run. And so the grant money that we were given under that MOU was not spent under that MOU, so we'd have to return it, or they would just deduct that from their grant award, which is the award that is paying for the other half of the flag campaign that Love already ran this spring.
So that money that wasn't spent 2 times ago was spent somewhere.
It was, yeah, spent this spring.
Okay.
And so, and what
It's not on the right.
well, no,
would be. I'm sorry.
it's basically, I know, sorry, basically, if you're looking at just that grant,
Yeah.
we get a certain amount of money, we don't use it, we have to pay it back if we don't
Yeah.
use it. Fast forward, we're giving a different pot of money, we say, we'll use it, we do. Rather than saying, okay, we're gonna write a check and send the Utah Office of Tourism an amount of dollars for 76 grand. Their proposal was, this grant that we gave you this round, we'll just decrease that total amount that we're gonna give you, so that we're between Grant County and the state.
Yeah.
We're
So
on
we
balance.
did lose it. We lost that.
2020 was it?
Because. we
Because it was
didn't
not spent.
Spend it. Can you tell me how we determined that that money wasn't spent? How did
So,
that get sorted
I
out?
had to figure that out and
Good
go
for
through
you.
past
Yeah.
emails,
Yeah.
but basically COVID happened.
COVID.
COVID happened. So this is in 2020.
Yeah.
And so those dollars that were set to be spent were scuttled.
In other words, that we were doing
Yeah.
it because
Yeah, so they just weren't spent.
Finding lots of weird money. Sorry.
Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But they don't allow us they don't give us any ability to carry it forward.
But they are,
Right.
they are.
That's what I thought.
They had to close out that grant because it's a 2-year timeline.
So just administratively.
It was just an administrative back end fix, and it means that we had to make this change for this.
Okay,
Well, that's frustrating.
Yeah.
Because that's revenue that
okay,
we've lost,
What happened with the hotel? He's the only one.
yeah,
Like,
right, that's real.
okay.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
Yeah.
part of it
So
is that the
these-
person who managed this was about to go on maternity leave and needed to close this stuff out before she was gone.
Community commission 2 years.
And we had already spent the money. We'd already spent this money. So the alternative was we could have decreased the total campaign for this year. But that was already in scope and spent,
Yeah. Okay,
so.
It's still a deficit.
sorry.
No, it's all good.
I see that.
No, I mean, it's one of those things that has been like in my back of the head that we've been needing to fix somehow.
I do have a question. So with these proposals, the 100, 200, and 300. Mark, if you can allude to it, just so I understand the whole flying campaign is not great news, but I don't want to like pull out of marketing in total, like what happened years and years ago, because it's gonna have a ripple effect. But for your expert opinion, would you say these markets are just kind of directed at come fly right now, or, you know, like marketing world, Moab on your brain, Moab, come to Moab, that now like,
And are they
So-
electronic? Is it print? Tell me a little bit about what it is that we're doing.
It's all digital.
It's all digital.
It's all digital. So let's say you're visiting your favorite web page. So we're tracking based on, you know, the audiences that we want to reach. We're going to be serving up these ads in a location that our audiences are and where they want to receive content that they're interested in. And so let's say they're on, I don't know, let's say a CNN, for example. They'll see a headline there that might say summer stargazing in Moab's dark skies, and they'll see a great image there. They'll say, oh, I'm interested in that. So they'll click on it, it'll go to the full article on your website and they'll learn more. And that's the whole goal of that. We want them to consume this and get them excited and more aware of what is happening in Moab and then the opportunity to visit during the summer months. And so likewise, not only with these native ads that really educate and bring about awareness, we'll also serve them up ads here as well. These nice glimpses, you know, for example, dark skies, nature's masterpiece, just as spectacular after dark. So they click here and then they'll be led to the 3-day Moab itinerary page, so they can learn more and see what's offered to them on a nice trip to Moab that way. So it's all about awareness. It's all digital, 100% of it. And so we're able to track, engagement, post impressions, which is essentially maybe somebody doesn't click on the ad, but they remember it at another time in that day or the following day. And then they go in and put, doing a search for Moab and it comes up that way. So we're able to follow that experience and really understand how they're engaging with these ads. And we also track which ads they're engaging most with by doing these split tests too. So we're able to provide data on not only the native, but also these display ads as to which people are engaging with the most. That also helps inform future content as well.
So when I'm walking through O'Hare Airport with my 80-year-old mother, or when I actually walk into the American Express office in Paris and see a massive, beautiful picture of delicate arch, do we have options for that? Or are we just basically targeting people that are digital? Or are we not? Sorry, I'm new to this commission and I don't know what you're doing historically and what's in place.
Yeah. So if you see like an ad at an international airport, that's a big display ad that you see on a wall. Okay, well, that would be cool. But that's like a billboard, right? That's like on a billboard on I-15, for example. It's generating overall awareness for that specific location and area of interest that is meant to have some awe-inspiring visual appeal in front of that audience. So that is more of catching their awareness and putting a URL there. And hopefully they go to that URL and they come back and they want to look at visiting Moab. That is a great sort of piece of content, but that's not what we're doing here. This is all digital based. So serving up content on your mobile browser, your desktop browser. And when you're out there searching, as you do each and every day, looking for things online, our goal is to target you as the potential traveler in our target audience and serve them up content where you are at that moment. So just like now, if you go up into your website, or if you're doing a search online and you're served up an ad, maybe it's a shoe ad or something of that nature, based on your search intent, we'll be serving up ads just like that in any other place.
Right.
Adam, would you add to that at all?
No, that's perfect. Yeah, and it's worth noting that part of the reason we lean on some of these strategies is that it kind of twofold builds awareness, but the native advertising is really nice because it allows us to kind of control the narrative and give that sort of sustainable messaging while promoting the destination itself, right? Because they come to our website after clicking on an ad, and then they consume our content that we've kind of curated. So it's not just come to Moab and go to Arches National Park, right? It's more, here are these other things we can do, or, we control that to help disperse visitation, make sure the parks don't get overcrowded or whatever it might be, right? So that's another reason some of these digital strategies are really effective, is it's not just awareness, there's also the education component to it.
Again, my question is, once I get it's informational, but once they get to the actual article, is there a call to action specifically? i.e., if you click on the river ad and it goes to the river article, is it then like, book any one of these great tour operators, like something that's specifically pointing them to convert the business, or is it just solely informational?
Well, on the website, they can go through, Canyonlands, they can look at all sorts of different things with flights, they can do all of those types of things on your website. So the goal there is that for them to read all that information and click through to plan their trip.
Yeah, and normally our conversion goal is a variety of things, one of them being time on page. So what we'll track is that someone comes in and actually reads the article, for example, right? But then we'll also tell our partner we're using to optimize towards what we call outbound clicks, which would be everything you just stated. It could be an outfitter, it could be, a reservation option, it could be more information on the website itself. So it's a multitude of things. It's consuming that content and then, yes, going out and finding information for, outfitters in the community or whatever else it might be.
Okay.
So if I type in 3-day Moab itinerary and I'm spending Moab dollars, is it sending me to Sojourn, Beator? Where am I going?
So once you've actually clicked on the ad, you're going to the Discover Moab website. So our actual website is where that article lives and where you're engaging with that content.
Yeah. And so I'm going to pop that up just for clarification. So when we say Sojourn or Storage Eyes, they are partners, platforms that we serve the content through. So you're not actually going to a Sojourn website, for example. You are going to Discover Moab. They're just a platform that we utilize to distribute and place the advertisements.
So if these are active ads and I've typed in 3-day Moab itinerary and I'm just trying to figure out how we come up here, so.
So the way it is set up is basically they've created an audience, which is been based on research of the types of people we're looking to attract, whatever the income category, origin, location. And so if you fit that and you're going anywhere on the internet, Sojourn, for example, it'll do its programmatic display where it is on the back end bidding on these websites like travelandleisure.com. Maybe you're looking at it like, you're like best places to visit the Oregon coast for wine or whatever. And then basically Sojourn, that partner, will buy that ad space on that website that you're looking at and will deliver one of these ads as you're scrolling. And if you're in our intended target group and you click on that ad on that website, then you go through our funnel to our website. We're tracking you. We know if you book a hotel after seeing that ad, which is how we demonstrate return on investment.
And what are the parameters for our target? Who are we currently targeting, Mark?
That's a good question. I can send that list along.
If you want to talk about the audience segmentation.
Yeah, I can mention the audience segmentation research. So we did an audience segmentation research study, I believe it was about 18 months to 24 months ago now, where we basically looked at all of the individuals who were either visiting Moab or a competitive destination for Moab, just kind of defined as places that offer the same scenery, activities, the types of people we would either want to attract or are already coming to the destination. And pretty much what the results of that study found were the types of individuals that we know are maybe bad visitors, for lack of a better term, right? Folks that don't know how to travel sustainably, don't know how to treat a community with care, but also a lot of those individuals who are not that way, right? That when they do visit, they visit for more days, they stay longer, spend more, like August was saying, right? Or they understand leave no trace principles a little bit better. They tend to take the off beaten path, things like that. So there were 5 or 6 audience clusters in general, but we really narrowed down to the type of people who tended to be a little bit older, have more disposable income, and their hobbies tended to be more around wildlife and nature, for example. And really this elicited more patterns and behaviors of respect, right? And so there's a lot more detail to this that we could share in that full segmentation study. So I'm trying to keep it, a little brief for the sake of time. But then what we did is we took all of that information and gave it to our partners in Sojourn and Storage Eyes, who ingested that and ensured that they were the individuals being targeted with these ads, right? So it's a mixture of those things. There's some intent signals that are included with it. We want to make sure that they're actively looking for a vacation somewhere around Moab or in a competitive destination, but also ensuring that they are quality visitors who won't be, causing problems in the community and will spend more, stay longer, things of that nature.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind sending along that audience segmentation so that we as a commission or council could look at that, because I'm not sure those folks bring the kind of tax revenue that our county needs right now. So we just like to look at that.
Yeah, happy to do so. Let me know if I need to provide you with any of those materials, August. Happy to dig them up for you.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And then and then when you go through the native articles, just to answer, I think maybe a previous question, is throughout the articles, there are hyperlinks to all the different content. So it might mention trails, it might mention, scenic flights, all those different things. So there's click-throughs within those articles that take you to different areas of the Discover Moab website as well. So.
Lacey? So on back to like the 100, 200, or 300 option, I know it's kind of a hard question to answer, but I'm just kind of wondering about ROI. Like if we are spending exponentially, 3 times, do we expect 3 times, the amount of visitors kind of deal? Just since we are in that position of trying to do this efficiently, and in your professional opinion, is there kind of like a sweet spot? This is going to be the best bang for your buck when we're considering that.
It's always hard to pin down an exact ROI extrapolation figure in any industry, and that's not specific to tourism, right? I mean, but heuristically, the more you spend, the more visitors you will generate to the destination. But that said, what I think we would stress is it's not just about looking at dollars spent to return on investment. There's also kind of an awareness angle to all advertising you would ever do, right? So a good example of this is we could reach individuals with this execution within any of these tiers that may never book or arrive in destination, right? But we would come into their consideration set for next year where they would then book, right? So very rarely, even though we do track these things, we need it for proof of success whenever we do a co-op buy, for example. We will track kind of ad exposed bookings and revenue. And the more you spend, obviously, the more those numbers increase pretty much linearly. But it's also worth noting that the more you spend, the more you ensure that you're filling the top of the funnel with awareness, just to use kind of marketing terms, and making sure that people are aware of Moab, not just now, but in years to come, right? Because if you were to cut all marketing dollars today, you probably wouldn't notice it on the community within the next 4 weeks, right? Because all of this is long tail impacts. You wouldn't notice it in the next 3 months, maybe a little bit, but a year, 2 years, 3 years down the line, you would really notice, right? Those dollars being spent less. So I do wish we had, I'd make a lot of money if I had an exact ROI model that we could tier up for each of these options, right? But it's worth noting that we do have tracking that's in place for that, but that's not always our overall goal that we're always emphasizing when we propose these different tiered options.
Right. Thank you.
And also I'll just add to that, like, for example, like on the timed entry campaign, tracking hotel bookings. And so we're able to kind of look at that as well and look at that return on the investment. We look at, the average daily rate that people are paying, and then the number of hotel bookings within that window that are associated with the ad sets that they have utilized to get to that booking as well. So we track that as well. And that's something we can send along to with the latest report for timed entry. Another campaign that we're just closing up on.
Thank you.
I mean, that was my question, basically tying into it, but you just answered it. I just want to, if we're tracking the hotel bookings, I just want to see what that's converting to.
Yeah, totally. And that's all included, and we have that reporting, right? And we can send it along. And if needed, if it would help, we could kind of outline our main KPIs that we always go into each campaign with, right? Which are a blend of things. They include bookings, which we always know are most important. I mean, at the end of the day, it's bookings, it's revenue, it's those types of things, right? But some other metrics we've honestly looked at are looking at like, what is our ADR for our campaign, right? Because we could drive 100,000 bookings, but if the ADR is really low and the length of stay is really low, yeah, we drove revenue in that regard, but it probably didn't do a whole lot for the community, right? So if it would help, we could kind of show the litany of KPIs we use that aren't just focused on ROI, right? To make sure that we when we are deploying these campaigns, we're doing more than just that, for lack of a better word.
That
I
would be
think that's
super
helpful. I think the more data, the better.
I know that I personally, 300 is a lot, and it's a little worrisome to spend that, but just kind of what they've said. I think we all know, like, if you just stop, if you go to the lowest one,
Right.
that doesn't, I don't, think that makes sense, and we want to keep the momentum going, and this is a really exciting campaign that we talked about months ago, just to try to push summer. I think it's a new avenue that we haven't done about like all the evening events and things like that, just to capitalize on the stuff that we haven't done before, and just to kind of see it. Kind of come full circle, hopefully. I think 300 is a lot, personally. But that's what my big, I don't know, like, kind of putting out there what you guys think about the 100, 200.
Right, can you remind me how much we have for the remainder of the year
For
for advertising?
for paid media advertising.
Yeah.
So we spent that, approximately $500,000 earlier this year. This is our kind of main summer campaign, and besides that, we have the time venture campaign. So those are the three campaigns that are in the budget this year. And
And it's a $2 million budget.
so yeah, we budgeted 1.8, which included 300 from reserves and an additional, I guess 500 from here is the top line.
And this will cover through September, you said?
Well, we can pick whenever we want. The focus of this is that we've seen from July 4th through Labor Day, which would be the beginning of
I think
September.
the money kind of stops coming in October, so we might as well capitalize and get county revenue. Seems like we need some money.
Well, I mean, there's a capacity issue then spring and fall. And so traditionally targeted more off-season advertising when we have capacity to bring more people in.
Sure.
And so in this case, and I don't know exactly what we mean when we say fly market advertising, it's the same campaign. So are we just, when we say fly market, are we talking about just the places that we're targeting?
Yeah.
Those markets.
The origin market.
I mean, and we've already brought this up a little bit, but it's possible that we'll have a 3 months. No EAS for 3 months. The DOT has to approve SkyWest to run through October, and I don't think we've heard back from them yet if they are going to allow that. Hopefully they will, otherwise we'll have 3 months of no EAS.
So I wonder if in some of these articles we can include, because I mean, technically those fly-in markets can still fly into Salt Lake or into Denver or into whatever. So if we included how you get here from there, kind of just as a precautionary, in case they can't fly into Moab. Moab's still an option if you fly here, Vegas, kind of deal. Just a thought.
Well, and we always try to have a page that's relevant for, how do you get here? But in the kind of marketing funnel, when we're trying to inspire and educate, that's like the next step. Okay, I've decided how to get here, or maybe I'm trying to decide how I get there is going to make a difference. But so I think we definitely want to make sure if that becomes an issue, if it's like, okay, we're going to lack commercial air service for a specific number of months, then we can, I think that's the value of digital here, is that we could change all of these articles in a week if we wanted to, continuing the same amount of spend if we're not seeing if something like that changes, where it's like, okay, hey, you know, to those fly markets, make sure it's like, hey, you can get here. There's a multitude of ways to get here. You don't say, red alert, we don't have commercial air
Right.
service, but you say, there's plenty of ways to get to that.
Yeah. And that's,
And so from what I understand, it's more like the fly market is where you're advertising, right? Where there is a distance to get here.
that's right.
But a lot of people that fly to Moab do not fly into Canyonlands. They fly to Grand Junction, they fly to Denver, they fly to Salt Lake.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's not like a fly campaign to fly into Canyonlands Field, which
Right.
we would like them to do, but it's not, that's not the driving force. The driving force is fly, you know, get to Moab. And most likely, if you live in Chicago, you're not gonna drive.
Right,
You know?
exactly. Yeah, the
So-
flight is like implied, basically.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mark, you were gonna say some.
Oh, no,
smart things.
So I think I might just be repeating what you guys are saying exactly right. So if I'm in Chicago and I go like, okay, what's the path to Moab? And then I look at the flights and get there. I'm like, oh, I might need to grab a car for the last few hours or something of that nature. But overall, it's those places where, yeah, like Chicago or San Francisco, where it's a little too far to drive. So I'm going to just, you know, look at flights and so forth versus the drive markets that we've been talking about that will also, that we're targeting now in northern Utah, Denver, Colorado, Boise, and so forth. So where people are like, yeah, let's do a quick 3-day trip to Moab. So we've got in those larger budget spends, we've got the option for not just the drive, but also the fly market to attract those people to hop on a flight and get here.
I also want to make sure that we're not gonna run out of time to talk with Adam in our data piece, because we skipped that last time because we ran out of time. We have until 4:15 scheduled for all of these budget pieces for the marketing and for the data kind of component. So I just want to make sure that if we can move along on this, to make sure we have time to have Adam
Can I
speak.
just say one thing?
Sure.
Okay, so I do think that we're gonna have a different capacity this fall, just because we've opened up a lot more rooms. And so I guess to Jenny's point, like, I guess I'm thinking whatever we need to spend to fill that, because it's gonna be a different capacity than it's been ever in the past.
Do we have any idea about our park visitation numbers currently
Currently. like this year.
compared to the last 4 years, compared to?
Yeah, I mean, that's why we looked at the last 2 summers were significantly lower than average, which is kind of what prompted this whole kind of.
But we don't have any data for this year yet. I'll find some, I'll dig it up.
They post it monthly on the national website.
So you think, Brian, there's gonna be more capacity this fall than in past or in recent history?
Yeah, I mean, we say, for me, it's like, I just take it down to the simple basics, like I have a conversation with Travis Packard literally 2 hours before this meeting. And, you know, he sells paper,
The toilet
plastics,
paper,
toilet
right.
paper, like, how's your business going?
Yeah.
And he's like, we're down in every sector except for the grocery market. And he's like, we just see way too many people are coming here in RVs, people aren't staying in hotels, they're not eating in the restaurants, but they're hitting city market. We're on 22% at the city market,
Yeah,
but everywhere else we're down. So yes, there is absolutely more capacity here, but that's why I question, like, who are we attracting? And who's coming? Because yes, we do have all these services that are stretched to the limit, but if they're not spending in those areas that are collecting the TRT, then why are we, informational is great, we have to, but we have to also attract, you know, fish where the fish are. And we need to find where those people are that are going to come and fill our hotels and our Airbnbs, things like that, you know, because that's gonna benefit us. People coming through in an RV and parking on the side of the road are not, they're just benefiting city market.
So are we aware of what the typical like lag time is between when somebody sees an ad and when they show up? Because
Yes,
it tends to be, you know. that
booking window
people
right now
plan
is about
things out.
45 days.
Say that,
Booking window is about 45 days right now.
45 days.
So that changes throughout the year. So their data indicated that in winter time, it's about 60 days. And it gets shorter as you get shorter to kind of peak travel time. So
So a month and a half. So if we're, I mean, I'm just bringing this up because if we're, the summer campaign is probably gonna be realized in the fall, partially.
Yeah. I like it.
What's your big booking window like, Brian?
Right now, we're at 21 days out.
Rebecca, what's your booking window looking like at your properties?
It's about the same as Brian's, but we get a lot of last minute bookings as of lately.
Yep,
That's what
walk
Red
in,
Tails is.
Walk in, walk in, walk in.
It's 7 days.
Yep.
Now, a year ago,
Like-
we were at 47 days.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
And the consumer is largely over 65 years old. So if you're targeting that senior market, that's what I'm seeing. I'm not seeing the families that I used to see.
Yeah, and I think that's what Love Communications on their last presentation talked about. That our demographics right now is boomers. They're the ones that want to travel. So that makes
And-
sense.
The
And-
people in these markets, you have to have money to
Yeah.
live in these cities, so I think. Maybe just the difference of the 100 and 200. Are you guys comfortable going?
I say let's spend it, but let's spend it now and let's get people here and get tax revenue where it needs to be able to run our county.
Yeah, so the campaign is live.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the 300,000 would be a 200,000 increase from first budget.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, that's not that much. I think that's, especially considering it's such a slow spring.
I mean, you don't know what you don't know. I mean, as long as you can collect the metrics, that's all I want to see at the end of it. So next year when this comes up, we can either tweak and move on or try something new.
Yep.
So,
And this is something that would be voted on by the commission.
Yeah, so, you know, basically this motion would be recommended and then I have to work my butt off tomorrow to put an agenda summary together so it can get to the county commission.
Yeah, got a lot of work to do to put it together, but we're hoping to get it on the next meeting's agenda.
Yeah, which we can do.
What are your feelings about this? Are you allowed to address what your feelings are about the revenue side of it?
Oh, yeah, I think this is fine to move forward on it. I think that, like I said, I mean, trying to make up for a slow spring. You know, and try to come out, I mean, hopefully we'll see a little bit of improvement over 2022 in the second half of the year. As you know, because if we just are flatlined with 2022 in the second half of the year, then overall, you know, I've just kind of done a rough projection, we might be down about 450,000
For the year.
relative to what we budgeted.
And that's
TRT.
total?
TRT. And that's total TRT, so
But
like
that's for the
a
year.
portion of that goes, yeah, that's for the whole year.
Okay.
And so a portion of that goes, you know, to law enforcement and whatnot,
That's a big
60%.
deal.
But it's still, you know, enough money that, yeah, I mean, it would have to make some adjustments to our budget to account for that decrease. But if you can make up for it in the second half of the year, then, you know, we wouldn't
Maybe
have
it's moot.
to do as much of a decrease to the various budgets that TRT supports.
And TRCCA largely contributes to the sheriff's department, and so if we can increase that.
No, actually, none of that goes. So TRCC goes to Old Spanish Trail Arena, Grand Center, mostly. And, yeah, so those are like our
Is filming TRCC? No.
films and TRT.
TRT.
Yeah, and so, TRCC, yeah, it goes to like our convention space, yeah, that kind of thing. But it has a similar effect as the TRT as it offsets general fund expenditures, which, you know,
Right.
decreases the likelihood of having to do a property tax increase.
Any other discussion? Is there anyone that would like to make a motion to increase the summer campaign to 200,000 or 300,000?
And specifically recommending the county
Yeah,
commission.
to the county.
I recommend the county commission increase the budget spend from 100,000 to 300,000 immediately for a summer campaign through the end of August.
I'll second that.
Brian seconds it.
Yep.
Jenny Gleason's in favor. Lori's
I'm a
in
fan.
favor. Lacey is in favor.
Brian's in
Brian?
favor?
Rebecca?
In favor.
Okay.
Great. All right, Adam, it's your time to shine.
Cool. Awesome. Do you mind stop sharing your screen for a second, Mark, so I can throw my?
Oh, of course, sorry about that.
No, you're fine. No worries.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thanks, everybody.
Confirming you guys can see hang on one second. It's probably the wrong presentation. Or the wrong screen.
This is showing what you're seeing with the.
Yeah, and there's the swap displays button. That's what I was looking for. You guys should now see the actual presentation.
Sweet.
Cool. Awesome. I'm going to run through this. Hopefully not too fast. I know we're tight on time. But what I'm going to run through today is our data subscription proposal. So as August mentioned, kind of what we've been rolling with to date are some, what I would consider to be really, really basic metrics, in addition to my time, just kind of as a consult in talking with data partners, recommending contracts, working with August and the rest of the economic development team, right? And so what I'm first going to run through is what's included in this budgetary increase, data source by data source at a pretty high level. What I'm not going to walk through is every single partner's name we've vetted and all of their cost parameters, but rather arrive at, as August mentioned, the three options we have landed at: good, better, best, kind of talk through the differences in those, and then end on the budgetary differences between them and why we're recommending them. And so kind of grounding ourselves, the reason we're doing this is Moab can be taking advantage, or Grand County specifically, can be taking advantage of quite a bit more data that's available out there from data partners that a lot of destinations are using across the nation that they currently aren't, that should be very beneficial given the challenges your community is facing, right? So the data types we're including in this package start with lodging and short-term rental metrics. And so these are pretty basic metrics relating the general health of the hotels in Grand County, as well as Airbnb and VRBOs. So we can go in and see what occupancy percentages are across the county, ADRs, RevPAR, year-over-year comparisons with that data, number of properties, how that's fluctuating, revenue generated, so on and so forth in these two data buckets. Additionally, we're going to want to tap into spend data for both visitors and non-visitors of various card types. The one we have been tapping into is Visa View, so just Visa card data, looking at, a good example being restaurant spend versus lodging spend for residents and non-residents and where they're coming from, right? One of the big increases recommended in this package is subscribing to a mobile visitation and event tracking tool. So this is where we're using cell phone devices to essentially say what number of people entered into our parks or entered into a specific road or an area in Grand County. Is that increasing or decreasing year over year? Things of that nature. Or when a special event occurs, right? Let's say it's a music festival. Let's say it's something else of that nature. What type of visitation increases did we see and where did those individuals come from? When did they leave? What other areas did they visit? When they came to the music festival, did they also go to Arches National Park, for example? Website and social media data is something that we've been kind of looking at, but it hasn't been necessarily aggregated. So this is performance of the Grand County website and its associated landing pages, data sources, social media presence, not just from a paid perspective, but organic. What are the types of things that people are engaging with? Where are they engaging from? Where do they live? Marketing data. So this is stuff that's been relayed in the reports, but not necessarily in a dashboard that everyone in this room right now would be able to access, right? So this would be Adara data, so bookings, revenue generated, the things we were just talking about in the prior discussion, in addition to the performance of, say, a native article or a display ad. And then additionally, any offline data in what I will just about get to, a dashboard ecosystem. So any, publicly available TRT data, maybe it's park visitation numbers, that just came up, something we could all easily access in one ecosystem alongside all of these other data sources. So the bulk of the budget in this recommendation is subscribing to a dashboard solution that does not just provide someone like myself and the Love team, August and his team, council members, but also the public access to data as we see fit, right? So we're going to be recommending kind of two dashboard solutions. The one that is preferential is called Symphony by Tourism Economics. They are an Oxford company, and they're used by destinations across the country. Most notably, Visit California utilizes them. Quite a few Texas DMOs use them as well. Very well respected, and they're focused on economic development. But the whole concept is that they can aggregate a lot of this data for us, and they work in the same dashboard tools that we actually use here at Love, which is super convenient. And kind of provide different levels of access to different stakeholders. And then that second bullet point to the public. So they can actually hop on the Grand County or Discover Moab website and go look at occupancy rates or national park numbers in one spot or website numbers, right? In that public facing data view, so the data can be exported and looked at by them. What is not included in this proposal would be any like survey related data. So when we're talking about some of our executions of polling the community, resident sentiment, measuring public opinion, that is not included in this proposal, but it's worth noting it could be put into the dashboard at no charge, but this isn't covering the hard costs associated with conducting those projects. So going through the options as we've walked through those different data sources, we're kind of recommending 3 options: a good, better, and best. And I'm going to walk through those now at kind of the level of comprehensiveness they provide. So what you're seeing in this table is across the columns, and the far left column are those data sources we just walked through, and then the various options. So starting with the good option, you're seeing that if we selected this option, and we'll get to budget details in a second, it would provide us with the most comprehensive level of detail for lodging and short-term rental data. However, when it comes to spend, we would be limited to just Visa card data, and our mobile visitation event tracking would be a lot more basic in nature. We would only be able to track 10, as they're called, points of interest to 15. So thinking we could track 15 different little areas in Grand County. Let's say it's the 2 national parks that we would maybe want to look at. Let's say it's the hotels all in one little cluster. So still providing that kind of visitation foot traffic, but not at a very comprehensive level. It would provide us comprehensive website, social media, and marketing data, but the dashboard solution itself would be pretty basic just in terms of the views we would provide. We would use our in-house system here at Love called Amplify, which still does offer, dashboarding for all of these different systems, but it's not as sophisticated as, say, a Symphony, who completely specialize in economic development dashboards. That is entirely what they do, is their entire bread and butter, right? And then the public-facing dashboard on this option would be basic in the sense that it would only be refreshed monthly for most data sources and would require a lot of upkeep over time. So the biggest change between the good and the better option is we get to pretty much borderline comprehensiveness with all of our various data sources. It's worth noting we would be able to start tapping into MasterCard data and some of the other secondary data sources because, as you can see at the bottom of that second column, we would be able to tap into tourism economics as Symphony product. What's really nice about this dashboard, in addition to the fact that it houses all of the information you're seeing on this slide, is they provide, for example, labor data. What does the job situation look like in Grand County, right? So they offer a bunch of additional data sources we wouldn't be getting beyond what you see on this slide as well, which is really nice. And then they offer a daily refreshed public-facing dashboard that they would maintain entirely in working with everyone who's on this call right now and whatever feedback we might have. Additionally, we would also get a lot more points of interest in that mobile visitation realm. So we would be able to track hundreds of different points of interest and do that event tracking. So if we know we have an event coming up where we want to see how many people came and visited from out of state to visit it and how much longer did they stay than the average individual, they could accomplish that with this option. Whereas in the good option, we wouldn't necessarily have that level of event tracking. The best option provides only one tweak to the entire plan of the better option, and that is in using a mobile visitation partner called Placer AI, who would allow us to look at points of interest outside of Grand County. So I could go to Grand Junction and draw a little point of interest and say, how many people went to Grand Junction's town square and where did they go after, right? At will. We could do it within a matter of minutes. Whereas with the visitation tracking in the option 2 is it's much more focused on Grand County specifically. So that said, there's a lot of numbers here, and this will be something we can discuss. But this breaks down the budget options across the 3 different tiers. What you're seeing is that good option would be $64,200, and a good chunk of that is between the dashboard solution and mobile visitation and event tracking. That's $40,000 right there. Where the big jump is in the better option, which is, I think, the one that we would maybe recommend today if we're not ready to spend the full $111,000, is we upgrade to the Symphony Dashboard Suite, which would bump that dashboard solution from $25,000 up to $48,000. However, our mobile visitation data actually gets cheaper because we work directly with them to decrease the cost of it. That last option, the big difference is in that mobile visitation and event tracking. upticks to 20,000, and the dashboard solution does get a tad more expensive just by nature of the way everything kind of packages up. Because Placer AI exists in their own dashboard solution, so they would be a separate instance from Symphony, which is what we're looking at. So that is our cost breakdown, and I can go back to this slide so we can hover on the cost figures. But August, I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to add here. Otherwise, I can happily field questions for the whole proposal.
No, again, we're looking at a recommendation kind of on a motion basis because we want to bring this to the next county commission meeting as an amendment to Love's contract. I think that at least the better option, I would probably die on that hill. I think the Symphony dashboard platform, especially the public facing data piece, so that we get questions all the time of this piece of data or that piece of data. And I think that it would really be super valuable to the community at large and decision makers to be able to pull that live from our site at any time without, our staff having to pull some numbers from somewhere. And just, Adam really did a very comprehensive job of vetting all of the various sources for this. And so he is the expert ultimately, but and I think that if we did that, we could always add the Placer event piece later if we found that the event or the mobile visitation tracking component of Symphony was not providing the type of event analysis that we're hoping for, which we have budgeted for some kind of analysis of what's actually going on in any particular event in town. So I think I lean towards better personally.
Did you say the event because of the actual cell phone service coverage
No.
offered here, or is it specific?
Sorry, can you clarify your question?
Did you say? the
I think I
option for
understand
it?
your question. I think I understand. Hopefully this answers it. Pardon to interrupt. But pretty much, I really think I do, because so the big difference with option 2 is we have to predefine all of our points of interest like months in advance. So pretty much what we would say is, hey, we have an event coming up in 3 months, and they would build out a tracking solution for that event. Whereas with option number 3, if we just decided one day, oh, an event happened a week ago, I'd like to do an analysis on it, we could do that at will, whenever we wanted.
That's big.
So my only point with that would be, I would actually choose the best, just based on the fact that we have all of these special permit things and seeing the impact of that, like the pieces of business that we turn away, that maybe go over to San Juan County. And being able to be like, well, we turned this away and they went to San Juan, and here's the impact of that, just so we have a comparison.
Right, because you could do an event analysis.
Completely.
And
And I think that alone is worth that cost.
Like of all of these things, that is the most interesting line to me, is
Cool.
the mobile visitation event track.
Yeah, the competitive piece is a huge difference maker on the best option. So it is worth noting, I kind of misspoke. In the better option, if we wanted to predefine, say, like 5 competitive destinations to track their footfall, we could do that, but we're pretty much limited to, say, outlining all of San Juan County or something like that, right? Or all of Grand Junction. Whereas with that best option, we could go somewhere in California and conduct an event analysis in one day, right? So the better option, we have some capabilities of doing it, which is why I'd mentioned somewhat comprehensive on better option 2 in here, but it's just not as robust at all, nor as fast. And it's just, it's not as competitive in nature. We wouldn't be able to do anything in the United States, which has a ton of value.
Adam, I have a question, and it may not be a you question, it may be a local question. Investing this kind of money in data, who would have access to the data, and what influence would it make on the decisions that are made countywide? If we're investing $112,000, is it going to move our needle in the way we make decisions, or is it just going to make us feel good to have a lot of information that no one can look at? Where does that information get shared, and where do we make that powerful?
Yeah, I can chime in, and then August, feel free to. Long story short, it's actually pretty customizable. So for me and the direct Grand County Economic Development team, it is directly through Symphony's website. They have a login portal where all of it's just, we have a bunch of dashboards we can go in and make decisions for, right? So when we're pulling a report that we might need to do monthly, where we know we need occupancy and spend numbers, if we're trying to inform some marketing decision, like what are my top 10 markets for these specific things, that dashboard will be accessible to the marketing teams, to the economic development teams, and then we can actually provide access to any commission members that might want this information, right? So It's obviously a little dangerous, and they provide customizable views if you don't want the whole enchilada. I mean, I'm the data nerd guy. I love it, right? But obviously, not everyone needs that much information overload. You can have unique login instances as a stakeholder where maybe you just want an executive summary. For the general public, it would be on the Discover Moab website. You could go log into, say, discovermoab.com/data. I don't know the URL. I'm just making that up. And the dashboard would pop up. But it's worth knowing we wouldn't have to give them all of this information. We could limit what they see, right? So we could say, we want the public to have access to lodging metrics, a handful of mobile visitation data, maybe some of our marketing metrics, and maybe short-term rental information. Or if we deem that they need more than that, we can always update that public-facing dashboard. So it's available online to the general public, to whoever may want to look at it, within Moab, outside of Moab, right? But for all the in the weeds information, we have a specific level of access in Symphony's like behind closed bars dashboard system.
So if Brian is looking at events that are coming in 2024, 25, and he's trying to analyze, is this a good event for my property? And he's analyzing who spends what kind of money and what kind of price what kind of price point do I want to put on my rooms based on the fact that these people are going to be willing to spend X number of dollars, etc. He might be able to have access to that as a hotelier.
Correct. I don't want to promise the world. There's always nuance with this data, but you absolutely could go in and say, all right, here's my top 10 spend markets, right, for this time period in hotels specifically with Visa data. And then I could cross-reference that with the amount of foot traffic I observed from those DMAs with the mobile spend data to see if the spending and visitation actually match. Because sometimes you'll get Visa spend that's super high just because it's a really close market, for example, right? So theoretically, yes, those are the type of questions that would be able to be answered by this type of data. At least to the degree of, instead of having absolutely no information, you're well equipped with a very much starter set of information. You're much more informed in making that decision, and you can get to that level of granularity when you're making it.
And in that visitor economy, are we going to be able to break down the types of visitors that spend money and what quantities they spend? Hikers are spending the majority of the money because they like to eat out, or bikers are spending money because they like shoes or whatever it is. Are we going to be able to have that kind of micro info?
Yeah. In so many ways, the way we would do that in a few different things is with, and this is again where we would need Symphony for this, it would have to be one of the two right options, is they actually marry some of their spend data with their visitation data. So what we would do is we would say, give me everyone who's visited a hiking trail in the last 3 months or a predefined period, whatever you might want it to be, right? And then you could say, all right, give me a cross analysis of their spend patterns and what other places they're visiting. So maybe they have higher spend than average and they're visiting a lot of restaurants, right? So we would then know people who visited those trails are in fact exhibiting those behaviors versus someone who went to maybe another POI or whatever it might be. I know I'm throwing out a lot of acronyms right now too, so I
It's
apologize.
great. It's good.
But yeah,
So-
in theory, yes.
I briefly want to add to that, which is that on top of internal and external facing dashboards, part of the contract with Adam is putting together a monthly report and digestible piece of communication that would be tied to, here's what our recent marketing study did, and that we would be then basically passing that along via our email network and just on a monthly basis regularly. Hey, here's your monthly data digest. Learn more on the dashboard. We've talked to the newspapers and the local news outlets to provide the box score basically, so that the public is getting that information where they put their information on a more regular basis. And all of this allows us to do that without us manually providing stuff from our archives to the other places.
Is there any other discussion or?
I have a
Sorry, I
question.
got you off.
Are these prices annual? And are
Yep.
they like from the month you start and you get this full 12 months? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, they're annual. And it's worth noting with Symphony, they have a decrease in their basic contract in year 2. It's really hard to display that on a chart, right? But it would actually get cheaper in year 2 because they structure them in 2-year contracts. So year 2 would become cheaper, but these are all 12-month outlook figures.
Okay.
If we can know this as a community, I feel like if we deal with what's real, the commission has the power to then make more accurate decisions based on real data instead of perceived data. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I mean, again, and I'm not trying to make comparisons. This looks pretty similar to what a lot of other destinations are kind of leaning into these days, right? Having mobile data, having a dashboard solution, I think is incredibly helpful because then it's not as anecdotal. And it's not just, here's our occupancy rate. What do we do with it?
Right, may I have a motion?
Oh, sorry, but I have one more question.
Yeah.
So whatever we decide to do with this money, it's coming out of what budget? And like, is there,
Yeah.
do we have to cut something to get that, or is it, tell me where?
So, yeah, so this is what I was presenting earlier. I can pull up the slide if you'd like, but that data category, currently 30 grand is budgeted in there for
30,
some
is
of,
that what you said?
yeah, 31.
Okay.
So any of these would be an additional X amount in the better, in the good options, like 60 something. So it'd be an additional 30 for the 111, it'd be an additional 70, 80. And that would be out of that additionally forecasted additionally forecasted budget that would be rebudgeted over. And so the maximum option for both the marketing and the data is within our currently forecasted revenues. So we wouldn't have to cut anything besides what I already kind of outlined.
Yeah.
In the previous presentation.
So the maximum is already in the budget as a possibility.
I tried to set it up so that it is, and then we don't have to cut anything additional, barring an additional
And
amendment.
this data would truly be available to the public
Yep.
so that we could make decisions.
Totally.
I move to go for this premium package.
Okay,
Jenny Gleason's in favor, Lori,
I'm in favor.
Lacey, Brian,
In favor.
Rebecca.
In favor.
Thank
All right.
you, everyone. Thank you, love.
Congratulations, Adam.
yeah,
I kind of like the name of Supremium package better than best. So I'm gonna steal that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
cool. All right, so we're running a little behind. I think let's try to condense D and E into 15 if we can.
Okay.
So these next two items on the agenda. We have Anna here who ran the pilot of the Business Responsible Education Program this spring. In the packet is an outline of for creating basically the minimum viable product of a online educational platform. So this is something that you would go through. You'd actually get the information on BioCrest, you get the information on, in-town recreation, et cetera, et cetera. And the intention there that would be the basis that we could build a larger kind of comprehensive responsible recreation campaign that commission's kind of really asking for us to see. And I'll let Anna speak to that, but part of bringing that up together is as we're planning for this year's Utah Tourism Cooperative Marketing Program that we would like to use and not have to lose money later. They haven't announced the full program. I've attached the 2022 program description, but the timeline for that is that it should open in May. The application is due in June, and interviews are in July and awards are in August. It's a very tight turnaround. And I think that our options to consider for that are largely kind of more traditional marketing or a larger kind of media campaign that would provide the kind of educational component in tandem with the existing marketing campaigns. And so it's kind of one is focusing on that existing marketing, and one is how do we really build out an inspiring campaign that is all about how do you visit Moab with respect, that this is how you Moab type of conversation, because we don't really have the media resources to put behind that. And so the starting point would be, where do we send people to? I think we've talked a lot about, you have advertising, you click through where you land. This kind of proposed kind of responsible recreation piece would be you're clicking on banner ad somewhere. You're clicking into an inspirational piece of video content that's talking about really the value of this place, how important it is to treat, respect, and take care of it in a way that doesn't feel paternalistic, in a way that actually drives you to real educational materials and is tied to, sweepstakes. And if you participate in this, you get a full modification or something like that. But the core of it is, what are we actually teaching people? What are we actually saying is this is the best practices, and how do we start figuring out what works there? And so what we're starting with is this beta program that Anna is running, in which we're working with our local businesses who interface with visitors on a regular basis and trying to make sure that they're fully up to speed with what is all the best information. And so we did a couple of these. And so I want Anna to kind of speak to that, and how that went. And then we can kind of talk about the proposal.
Okay.
Yeah.
So hi, I'm Anna. I'm the responsible recreation coordinator for Grand County Active Transportation and Trails. And so I manage the Trail Ambassador program that we have, which is previously focused on hiking and biking, has now expanded into climbing and motorized. We've just been awarded a grant to expand our motorized Trail Ambassador program, which we're really excited about. And one of the next steps that we've taken here in the community is trying to identify ways that we can not only provide responsible recreation and education at our trailheads, but what happens before that or after that. And the business program is really about the folks that have really short interactions with people. We're talking servers, retail, basically an in-town service. So essentially what we've done is we've kind of condensed what we do as a trail ambassador into a sentence. So if you go out to dinner and you ask your server, hey, where can I go to see a waterfall? Well, Mill Creek, right, is one of those spaces, but it's also a very important space to the community. So how can we provide a thought or a piece of education before they get out there in the employment of a server? So what that is, oh, hey, yeah, Mill Creek is a great place to go. Just know that there's BioPressed out there, so it's important to stay on trail, so have fun. Right, so really short, and then they meet us as trail ambassadors. And so this messaging is just kind of fused in because the landscape is so important to the economy of our area as well. So how do we help protect the landscape so that when they come back next year or 5 years or 10 years from now, it looks very similar to what they've seen today. And so this is attempting to infuse messaging in many different aspects. So we have our on trail, then we have our servers. Of course, we have our guides from every form of recreation. But then before they even get here, how can we add that next piece of the umbrella of providing education on how to recreate in this space so that they can enjoy it today and in 10 years. And so that, our landscape is part of our product. And so how can we continue to provide that in the way that it is today and 10 years? And so I think that's the basis and the idea behind this project is providing a very inspiring recreation and education focused program that comes in short bursts, that isn't too overreaching in predetermining their experience, but actually incentivizing them to learn about our landscape in the first phase of trip planning, and then to just slowly learn throughout their visit here as well. And so what we're hoping to do is just to provide them another way to enjoy Moab, which is understanding the landscape that they're in as well. So our Trail Ambassador program, I think, has been very successful. Our business program received positive reception as well. That was a pilot program. We had 2 sessions in which I provided training on how to communicate about archaeology and BioPressed in short bursts. So 1 sentence to 3 sentences. And yeah, we got extremely positive reception from that. And so we're going to reformat some things for the fall and do another 2 to 3 person session and just continue to improve
in
that
person.
for the fall.
Yeah.
But that's to practice your communication skills, because it is really intimidating to provide this information without practicing it beforehand. I know that from experience, like being a trail ambassador, your first couple weeks, you're like, nobody really wants to learn this. Nobody really wants to learn this. But at the end of the day, what I've experienced and what our staff has experienced is that if we approach them with a very compassionate and positive attitude and approach, we can really pull them in to just understand at least one aspect of protecting our trails. And I think that's what we're hoping to do with this business program. With the in-person connection is how do you, people want to hear this information from our experience, as long as we're providing it in a good way. And then, you know, adding in this higher level makes those conversations more approachable. I can tell you from, you know, HB 180, the test started January 1st.
That's the off-road.
The off-road
Education requirement.
And what I would say is that's open conversation for our staff. Because they come to us and they say, oh, I heard on HB 180 that about a WAG bag. What are those? Oh, I have them. Right? So those conversations are just much easier to initiate when people have seen the information before they meet you, whether you're a server, a guide, or a trail ambassador. So we're just trying to layer up this education, responsible recreation message that we have here in the county.
Yeah. And so
Oh, yeah.
well, so the attached proposal is for money that's already budgeted for film that we've already shot, to package those educational videos, put them on a platform where, in this case, servers, front desk workers could, the night before an in-person training, review this information in a media enriched environment, and then show up to the education and have that kind of prior prep. It's how the Utah Avalanche Center does its avalanche education awareness. And then we would be able to use that same education platform, work out the kinks, and build the consumer general visitor facing version of that, in which we're putting, you know, a documentary piece together that's really emphasizing the bigger picture of like, this is how you Moab, why is Moab so amazing, and why should you treat it kind of with the utmost care, and tying that to inspirational content about actually visiting here. And so, you know, all that I'm kind of bringing up today, there's not really an action here, but that I think a really good potential opportunity to fund kind of the larger consumer visitor facing part of this campaign is going to be through the co-op grant process. And, you know, we have to figure out, do we want to try to fund that out of just TRT in the 2024 budget, or do we want to try to get some funding behind that from this co-op grant? And then it's really the flip side. Do we want to go for that co-op grant money for advertising and then fund the rest of that program out of TRT? And I wanted to bring this up because the co-op grant application is going to be due next month, right? And so when the co-op kind of next grant conversation comes up, we will need to actually have like a pretty much finished version of the application. And so wanted to bring that up and get some direction. We could also put together like two potential application options, one that is kind of on this more advertising side for next year, and one is more media focused for this type of visitor education campaign, and then have the travel council review it and then bring it to the county commission for their consideration as well. But wanted to bring Anna in to speak to how it's going so far, attach some of the vision behind what that, you know, education platform would look like, etc. We do have one more item that we need affirmative action on of the event grants. But yeah, I don't know. What do you want to do, Jenny?
I think having both applications for next month. The
Yeah.
advertising one, and then the more, you know, like responsibly, the video. Is everyone okay with that? And just,
I don't understand what you're saying.
so he's gonna do extra work and give us everything, two options, instead of just talking about it today. He's gonna present to us what he's going to submit for the UA co-op 2023 grant process. So we'll be able to have both options and be able to vote on it next month, because it's due
In June.
June.
Yeah, even though they haven't released the guidelines this year, technically.
So one of the things that you're gonna work on in the next month is the option of having this video option for random people who want to click on that and learn about things who have no incentive to do that. And then the other one is what?
Is it more of an education piece?
I
for
would,
the
the way I,
That's what Hannah said.
no, the way I boil it,
That's
the way
what-
that I would boil it down is that this co-op grant typically is marketing heavy. The state has created way more flexibility to prioritize these more kind of responsible recreation education pieces that can also be funded. I would still be a media campaign, it would still be facing visitors, just as a different ask, which is go through this filter of education before you book your trip, basically. And the question that I would have and that I would want to check with the state is, which is more likely to be funded, kind of a more responsible education, media education piece, or an advertising piece, because ultimately we want just to maximize the amount of dollars we're getting from the state in this case, and then we can choose what we spend the rest of the TRT money on.
So my question is, it said budget not to exceed 49,000 or whatever, so is that for the content itself, and then we could apply for more money to
Yeah.
distribute them? Is that?
So what's currently, but what the proposal is that's money is already budgeted.
Okay,
So that's just, we are going to send that out like this week, so we can get that done.
and that will create the videos for the business training?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yep. And then that's basically the minimum viable product that we test. And we say, does this education platform work with the footage we've already shot? We're not doing more production. We're just editing videos, putting it on education platform. Right. And so then from there, the bigger ask would be, let's put together, a 20-minute documentary that could go to like Band Film Festival, for example, that's really telling the Moab story in a comprehensive, compelling way that is inspiring, and it's showing all the ways that you can enjoy this place. And it's also telling the tricky journey that is, why we're facing challenges and why it's important for visitors to be a part of that journey with us, right? And then in addition to that, putting some paid media out there. So we're targeting the user groups that we know are coming here and saying, this is how you Moab, and win, participate in this education campaign and win a full Moab adventure, fully paid, incentivize it for sure.
And can I ask, business wise, how many businesses have you been able to educate so far? How many are buying into this program so far?
Yeah. Let me just pull it up. Sorry, it's taking a second.
Oh, sorry.
I drive for some reason, it's not loading.
No, even like a ballpark is.
Yeah, I say about 10, and this was just a pilot program. And then I have also been asked to do like independent trainings that I haven't been able to follow through with because it's our busy season. And so I'm really hoping this is a biannual thing rather than like every so often. So
Right.
but like I said, the reception was extremely positive.
Yeah.
To it, and the practice was too, and any of the feedback that I was given that was about making improvements, we have made or will be making before our next one in the fall. And so I'd say, yeah, 95, and I just because I haven't looked at them, somebody said they'd do it later.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
so like 95 to 100% said they really enjoyed the practice.
Yeah.
Of communicating and just putting this very succinctly in this communication style. And so
Right.
what I've been using for these is the current YouTube videos that we have on biocrust and archaeology, but that takes up a significant portion of the time. And really, we want to be making connections and teaching the actual communication styles and making that up the focus point of the in-person part. And then this broader business focused education platform is more so if you get a new employee and I only do a biannual in-person training, you have a resource in which to say, here's a 30-minute training that you can take. It's got, all of this stuff about biocrust. It's, and I just have to look at what we proposed here, but, biocrust, trip planning, how is it up there? Okay, trip planning, cultural sites, waste bag, modern Moab. But then also specializes into hiking, mountain biking, motorized camping, river, canyon climbing, and canyoneering. So it provides every form of, our top recreationists, a level of education that helps them protect their trails and their product and their experience for today and future use.
So will these videos be available to businesses who maybe
Mhm.
don't have the time for like the in-person, but
Yeah.
could just do the videos?
Yeah.
Well, and that's the intention, is that you build an evergreen platform
Mhm.
that is useful, because maybe there's a film production want to come into town, and you want to be able to provide some basic coverage of this is like how you behave in this area. Use that piece of content if it's a business coming to town, if you're visitors, if you're employees, so it's covering all of these things from an evergreen perspective in a way that's like fun and engaging and is not, here's like just piles of content for me to consume.
Or piles of words.
Yeah.
Right. And I guess my main purpose in asking and trying to understand more is there a way to kind of, is there really a need for two complete separate series of content?
The idea is hopefully the same.
Okay.
So
Oh, you're saying the first
I'm
product.
talking
and the
for,
second.
well, I'm even talking, like for training for businesses versus education for visitors. Is there a way to marry those, or does it need to be, I'm just understanding.
yeah, so the idea that it is married, so that the educational actual platform, that is the actual piece of content that you're consuming to get to the end goal, which is that you're more aware of the ways to recreate responsibly, is the same piece of content. The additional cost is how do you create a compelling story around that content to sell a visitor on visiting Moab and doing so responsibly, and not just saying like, click on our educational platform and do homework, right? It's more, and then doing activations in our target markets like Denver and Salt Lake and at the local climate gym or at the local gear store and saying, film screening here. And it's through this perspective of like, be a part of the Moab story. And then you have an incentive to do this work, the same way that you watch A Convenient Truth and you're like, oh, I want to solve climate change tomorrow. How do I do that? You want to do the thing. So
I would also say
Yeah.
that, the two, I wouldn't say they're separate, they're very similar, but there might be a little bit more information that might be helpful for employees of businesses to know than the public. So, something that really helps is if somebody asks you, and I'm just focusing on BioCrest because it's just the hot topic I always talk about, but if somebody asks you about BioCrest, you have one or two more facts than they've seen on their platform.
Yeah.
And so you have the expertise to provide an extra layer of information, which is helpful. And reinforces that your employees know what they're talking about and the places they're talking about. And so I'd say it might be a little bit longer for the business side because there might be a little more information that's needed versus.
And are there incentives for businesses to participate in, other than, obviously, it's a good thing, but are there incentives for?
none of the current pilot phase. So we're just trying it out, seeing who signs up.
But I would say, I think that is a great idea and
We've talked about
look
that.
to the community for that information. Yes.
I believe that outfitters have an obligation to do the heavy lifting here. And by not doing that, we are doing a disservice to the entire world. So that, I just need to state that right out front. But back in the day, Marion DeLay helped develop a program where we went to front desk employees of hotels to teach them how to do hospitality. In the high schools, we did this, trying to teach them how to properly answer a phone with courtesy, because even though they would probably only work at that hotel about 10 months, they'll then go to another hotel, and then they'll go decorate cakes at the bakery for a while, and then they'll go be servers for a while. So at least that information was shared, but the incentive wasn't there. And if we don't incent this program in a way that people, other than the fact that they have a passion for the outdoors, if we don't, I think we're using we've spent thousands of dollars in value from our company alone with Mark Finley, developing content. It's on Discover Moab. I believe that a lot of those programs are there. Let's look at what's being clicked through. Let's look at what we have and see if it's getting any traction before we spend more money. Throwing money at a program that we feel good about, but isn't really getting any traction.
I think you bring up a great point of needing to incentivize, and I think that is something that if we're able to create this platform, it's gonna be a conversation of how do we incentivize the community to take part in this? And so that's more of a question to businesses, right? I'm gonna throw it into your boat, but what is that? What do you want to see from taking this or having your employees take this? And how do we do that? I think is the next question, to make it a successful program. Because I would say, in my experience, with my education, on-trail education, is that a reward is really helpful in reinforcing learning, whether if it's to the individual and to the group. And so, in our cases, it's a sticker, but what is it for an online platform? I don't know. And that's something that businesses could answer.
Are we okay with having them present both options next month and then possibly you talking a little bit more about the incentivizing program aspect of it? That's what I'm just hearing from everyone.
I just have one other question, sorry. How is this different from what Science Moab is already doing?
Right,
For businesses?
Oh, science certification.
Yeah.
So, ours is, it's a bit more intensive. It's an 8-hour training and it costs between $1,000 to $2,000. And we're not trying to replace them, and we're in contact with them about this. They've observed the program and provided feedback. We're not trying to replace it. But we're also not, this direct business program right now, like it can expand, but it's what's the gap, and that's retail and servers and hotels versus this the Science Moab, all of our staff are trained and science certified. That's a really great program, but sometimes it's just out of reach or out of time. People don't have 8 hours to spend on that. So how can we do that in 30 minutes and provide a similar, not the same level of education, because it's not going into depth, but just a focus points of this, of what they do. So, I think it's a great product for guide services. Honestly, I would recommend it to anyone. This would be the hotels and then, the people that might rotate through staff a little bit faster than, say, a guiding service. And so that's the void we're filling.
Cool. Having both options and then being able to speak to a little bit more about how to incentivize local businesses next month.
I'm gonna be honest, I've been in and out, so I'll be getting my feet back on me this coming month, but we can lay out a plan as to what we will do.
And this is,
Stepwise.
and largely this is in our office.
Yeah.
And Anna is more of a partner. in
I'm not
education.
at all in favor of trying to educate our potential visitors. When I'm driving down the freeway and I see a billboard advertising Steamboat, it doesn't say wear a helmet. It says, come to Steamboat. This is a beautiful place to be, share it with us. And then when you get closer to the ski lift, then you start talking about, okay, let's remember to wear a helmet. But if we are hitting people over the head that you don't get to come to our town unless you recreate the way we want to, we're not gonna have people, other communities, they'll go somewhere else.
I would just to speak to that, I think that we recognize that there is a way to present this messaging that is inspirational and brings people in. And that's a line that, somebody with a lot of talent in filmmaking is going to be able to walk along, right? And I think that's the most important piece is there a person to tell this story in a way that makes it a story rather than a message that feels like it's being beaten over the head, right? And so I think it's a great point that we need to steer away from that, but I do think there's a way to inspire and pull people in if we have the right team behind it.
And HB 180 has been a jumping off point every day. We have every one of our customers a document that says, I will not drive or allow anyone else to drive unless they've taken that course. And it opens the door to say, our trails will not be open if we remove them. We're gonna lose the privilege. And people have been incredibly receptive with a door open, but if we're beating them over the head with, in a different way, you can't come here unless you take a test, I think we're missing the point. So thank you.
Yeah, it's definitely not gonna be, you can't come here. It's just, this is a beautiful aspect of our landscape, BioCrest. And so what we want is for, how they come in and say HB 180, they can come in as HB 180. Oh, and I saw BioCrest. What is that? Can you tell me more? And then your employee through this program could say, BioCrest is this and this and this.
And every tour we do,
Yeah,
every
perfect.
tour we talk about BioQuest.
But a hotel person might be able to do that
Right.
too. And so they might come into your service with a tiny bit of information and then, with your guide's level of knowledge, be able to expand. So.
There's no action
Thank
required
you.
on this. item.
Yeah. Good plan for next month.
Okay.
Have all of those, and then you also said that you could go out and see what the overall vision
They
is.
said they'll be releasing
Okay.
the program details shortly.
Fantastic. So last up on the agenda is review and consideration of the remaining community event grant funds for 12,500. We postponed this at the last meeting because there were some questions about, I think it was like Red Cliffs or just, we talked about this last week, and a couple options are we could assign the 12,500 to other events that applied, or we could disperse it among the 3 that we've already passed or approved.
So can I make it a little bit easier? You can take Red Cliffs out of the equation entirely.
Come on, okay.
Well,
Um,
I think that, I just included the information here, so like. What happened last meeting is the travel council recommended the ad hoc committee's recommendations to the county commission. The county commission took those on, passed, approved. So there's an additional 12.5 that is left that was gonna go to the county fair. County fair was funded elsewhere. So the commission resolved to ask the travel council board, what do you want to do with this last 12.5? Do you want to evenly, and my recommendation would you could either evenly recommend it to the awarded candidates, pick someone who didn't get money and give them 12.5, or bag it and move on. And just not award the remaining 12.5, and that would just go into reserves. And then we come back around next year with this program.
I move to bag it.
Yeah.
and move on.
Second,
Okay,
Goes to reserves, huh?
let's call the
Things we've been talking.
Jenny Gleason, opposes that. Lori,
Okay. Opposes what?
oh, just the recommendation bag it.
okay, you can say no.
Lori,
I'm
four,
bagging.
Lisa, Brian,
for bagging.
Rebecca,
Shouldn't have used that word.
Sorry, say that again.
Are you, the motion on the floor is choosing not to award the $12,500 and let those funds fall to reserves. And the question is, do you vote for or against that motion?
I'm for it.
Okay,
all right. And if there's no other discussion, I'd like to adjourn the meeting.
none for me.
All right, good job.
All right.
Thanks, y'all.
A few minutes.
Thanks, guys.
We made it.
I know.
It's 30 to 1, you're right.